You know, when you think about bombing missions in World War II, you think about one thing, right? Destruction. But what if a bombing raid could actually be a rescue? Well, today we're looking at Operation Jericho. It's this incredible story about a precision air attack on a German-held prison where literally everything hung on an 11-second fuse. It sounds like a total contradiction, doesn't it? I mean, you've got the Royal Air Force, an organization built for one purpose: destruction. And suddenly, they're being asked to perform an act of liberation. They had to use 500-pound bombs not to just demolish a building, but to carefully crack it open, freeing the people inside without killing them in the process. This whole mission just lives in that gray area between saving lives and taking them. So, to really get why a plan this extreme was even on the table, we have to go back to German-occupied France in the winter of 43-44. After a really brutal offensive by the Gestapo, key resistance networks were just shattered. Mass arrests had completely crippled their operations, and their most important members were all locked away inside Amiens prison. So, the Allies were facing this absolutely impossible dilemma. Their key resistance leaders were captured, and they were literally about to be executed. A ground assault? No way. That was completely out of the question. The Germans had reinforced the prison and turned it into a fortress. It would have been a total suicide mission. Time was running out, and they were completely stuck. And just to wrap your head around the human scale of this crisis, think about this number. On the day of the raid, there were 832 people crammed inside Amiens prison. And these weren't just soldiers, you know. They were a mix of resistance fighters, political prisoners, even some common criminals, all of them just packed into these overcrowded cells. The weight of all those lives was just hanging in the balance. Now, among those hundreds of prisoners was one man who could literally change the course of the war: Raymond Vivant. He was a high-level resistance leader, and he knew critical, top-secret details about the upcoming D-Day invasion. If the Gestapo made him talk, the entire Normandy landing could be compromised. So the orders from London, well, they were chillingly clear: get him out or silence him permanently. With the ground attack off the table, the Allies looked to the sky. And they came up with one of the most audacious, most precise bombing plans of the entire war. This wasn't about carpet bombing, not at all. This was about aerial surgery. And their scalpel was the Havilland Mosquito. I mean, this aircraft was perfect for the job. It was built of wood, so it was light, incredibly fast, and really hard for German radar to pick up. Okay, so the plan they devised was intricate, like a Swiss watch. It was this multi-stage operation that required split-second timing. First, they'd use bombs with a delayed fuse to punch holes in the outer walls. Second, they'd hit the guardhouse at exactly noon, hopefully catching the guards at lunch to create total chaos. But the third step? This was the most audacious part. They needed the shockwaves from the bombs to be just powerful enough to spring the locks on the cell doors, but not so powerful that they brought the whole building down. All while the French resistance was waiting outside to help the prisoners escape. I mean, everything had to be absolutely perfect. You have to imagine what this was like for the pilots. This mission was a profound shift in mindset. As Wing Commander Smith put it, here we were going to use our skill to save life. I mean, after years of focusing only on destruction, they now had a chance to use their incredible expertise for something constructive, something life-saving. It was, as he said, a grand feeling. The level of detail here is just incredible, right down to the bombs themselves. They didn't just use one type, oh no. They used semi-armor-piercing bombs, which were designed to punch through those thick outer walls. And then they used medium-capacity bombs, which had a bigger blast, to hit the guardhouse and create those crucial shockwaves inside. Every single element was carefully chosen for this surgical strike. But on the day of the raid, February 18th, there was a huge problem: the weather. A massive snowstorm had just blanketed northern Europe. Flying in these conditions was beyond treacherous, let alone trying to pull off a low-level precision bombing run. But with the executions scheduled for the very next day, they had no choice. They had to go. The attack unfolded with just breathtaking speed. Takeoff is at 11 a.m. By 1 minute past noon, they're already over the target. The bombs hit the walls at 12:06, and just 4 minutes later at 12:10, the mission commander, Group Captain Pickard, actually sees prisoners pouring out from the breaches in the walls and calls off the reserve wave. The core of the mission, from start to finish, took less than 10 minutes. And when we say low level, it is so hard to overstate just how low these pilots were. On the final approach, they flew so close to the ground, they actually had to bank their planes just so their wingtips wouldn't clip the tops of the trees lining the road to the prison. This was flying on a knife's edge. It was an act of just unbelievable skill and nerve. But this incredible success came at a terrible cost. Group Captain Pickard, the man leading the entire raid, circled the prison one last time just to confirm that prisoners were escaping. That delay, that one extra circle, made him a target. As he turned for home, a German FW-190 fighter plane shot him down. He and his navigator were killed, a really tragic loss at the very moment of their greatest triumph. So, the raid was over, but its legacy was really just beginning. The aftermath wasn't some simple story of heroes and rescued prisoners. The reality, as we're about to see, was just so much more complicated and honestly, morally ambiguous. So the immediate results were this wild mix of stunning success and tragic failure. On one hand, 258 prisoners managed to escape, which is amazing, but the cost was staggering. 102 were killed in the bombing, and another 74 were wounded. And to make matters worse, of all the people who broke free, 182 were recaptured pretty soon after. Freedom came at an extraordinarily high price. However, if you look at it from a purely strategic perspective, the raid was a massive victory. 79 key resistance members got away, and those scheduled executions, they were averted. And maybe most crucially, the escapees were able to identify over 60 Gestapo collaborators, which was a blow that absolutely crippled the German intelligence network in the region just a few months before D-Day. The final tally really reveals the brutal accounting of this raid. 4 Allied aircrew were killed, over 170 prisoners were either killed or wounded, and 50 German guards died in the attack. It's just a stark reminder that even a rescue mission in wartime is an act of incredible violence, with costs for absolutely everyone involved. And this is where the story takes a really strange turn. For years, the official story was that the resistance requested the raid. But post-war investigations found something startling. Top resistance command had no idea it was going to happen. The RAF had to ask them for details about the prison's layout. So, if the resistance didn't ask for the raid, who did and why? The true purpose of this mission remains shrouded in a whole lot of secrecy. So, what was Operation Jericho? Was it the heroic rescue it always appeared to be? Was it a tragic success where the cost almost outweighed the victory? Or, as some historians now speculate, was the entire thing a massive, high-stakes diversion to distract German intelligence from the real prize, the Normandy beaches? The truth is, it may have been all three at once.